Hi, how's everyone doing? This is Mike from Gamblers. Late video today. We took new press photos, and we only had a few of us because one of the guys was around a COVID situation, and one of the other guys broke his collarbone. So we we got something coming out at the end of the month, which I'll announce. But we had to take some new photos for that because I just felt like the ones we had been using were kind of burnt out at this point. But wanted to do a video. Um, the last couple I've been talking a little bit about, my personal experience. Did one about the beginning of the band, and then yesterday did one about my experience making music for Anthony Bourdain's show Parts Unknown. I thought I'd kind of continue on this stretch of these personal experience videos. I wanted to talk today about my time interning for the Colbert Report, which is not necessarily to do with music, but it's just something that is in my past and is in my experience, and I just thought I've never really talked about it before, to be honest, and it was a formative time. It was an influential time, and I thought I'd just have some fun and chat about it a little bit. I was, like I mentioned, I went to Hunter College in the city, and I was studying political science. That was my major. I minored in Spanish. I actually spent some time in Argentina studying, which was an amazing experience. I still think about to this day. It was 12 years ago, actually, this time, or last month. It was December to January of 2009. And, that time in Argentina was probably the most memorable part of my college experience, right alongside my time interning for the Colbert Report. So part of my major for political science, we had to do, we didn't have to do an internship, but we were able to apply for internships, and we would, get X amount of college credits for it. I can't recall now. I want to say it was 6 to 8 credits or something like that. I can't really recall. So I was searching around for internships to do, and just by random chance, my mother, who is still to this day a ultrasound technician, which, if you don't know what that means, she scans pregnant women's bellies and makes sure everything's on the up and up as far as pregnancies go. Not just pregnancies, but that's the majority of who she sees. And one of her patients, I'm also realizing this might be breaking HIPAA law, so I don't know if, I won't say who, but one of her patients was involved with the Colbert Report. And if you know my mom, she talks a lot, just like her son on these videos. And she struck up a conversation with someone who, I won't say who because I don't want to break the HIPAA law, but was involved in the show and said, "Oh, why don't you have him apply for the Colbert Report?" So I did, and I guess this person who was very nice was able to somehow, tag it. And long story short, I got the internship. So I got to thank my mom on that one. And it was a really cool experience. We would basically how they would do it was you do a little bit of everything. So some days I'd be, the secretary answering the phone. Some days I'd be in the accounting office, which sounds boring, but that was actually my favorite because they were just so cool down there. They were like these two stoners. They were like always listening to music, like good stuff. Like basically I'd go down there and just talk music all day long, do nothing with accounting. It was great. Another one, which I think was on Wednesdays, if my memory serves correctly, I was in charge of the audience me and another person, we would literally go get everyone's information, make sure they were the right person that they said they were, as far as, you know, being in the audience that night, check their IDs. Um, so it was a really, you know, diverse situation as far as the responsibilities go. Um, Being the audience coordinator was really cool, because sometimes you would get to see just these magical things. Like, Steve Martin was the guest one time, and I was, you know, 10 feet away from him as he was practicing, rehearsing, to, because he was actually the musical guest that night with his band, and he plays banjo. 10 feet away from watching Steve Martin. Um, Another part of the responsibility, sometimes you would be like handling the talent for the day, or, you know, helping out the talent coordinator. And it was the week that LCD Sound System was playing Madison Square Garden for their, you know, what was supposed to be their farewell show, which is documented in the documentary Shut Up and Play the Hits. Their only television appearance promoting that was on the Colbert Report. So I was on the talent team that day. So I actually was dealing with James Murphy, and, like, you know, he was really nice and cool. He was like super low key, but I was like, you know, getting him drinks and stuff if he wanted, which he didn't even really take me up on that. But I, you know, was like, oh, do you need water, or like that type of thing. But it was cool. Like, I get to see LCD Sound System rehearse and perform. One time, Michael Moore was the guest, and I was down on the side of the stage when the live, well, it wasn't live, but when the taping was going on, and he and Steven actually kind of got into it. He you know, he was like calling Steven basically a corporate shill, and Steven actually played it really cool. He like, Michael Moore was like, you're just a, you know, a Viacom, which is the company that owned the Colbert Report. He's like, you're just a shill of Viacom. And Steven was just like, went into the camera and he was like, a very happy shill who really appreciates the opportunity. Like, he was like talking to Viacom. I thought that was an interesting way to play it. One of the probably coolest things as far as responsibilities go, and in hindsight, I don't know why they left this to an intern, but it was around Emmy consideration week, or the time for the Emmy consideration. And the Colbert Report had to basically submit an episode and write about the episode and why they think it, you know, should be considered for an Emmy. I can't remember exactly the episode, but they put me in charge of writing the Emmy pitch for the episode. So I wrote up, you know, what I thought was, I guess they gave me guidelines, and I can't really remember. This was 10 years ago, actually. Holy shit. Whoops. I don't know. It just, time fucking flies. Yeah. It was the winter and spring of 2011. I don't know why I said whoops, like I made a mistake. Whoops. I just meant like, oh shit, it's been 10 years. But I wrote the Emmys, why they should consider this episode. So that was cool. One thing that was really interesting was, if you've seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, the character who, you know, the main character that Kate Winslet plays, I'm blanking on her name. I've seen this movie many times. She's based on a real life person. So back in the 90s, Stephen Colbert was the head writer, or no, Louis C.K. was the head writer, but Stephen Colbert was a writer on the Dana Carvey show. And one of the other writers was Charlie Kaufman. And Charlie Kaufman wrote or directed, or both, Eternal Sunshine. And Charlie Kaufman was dating someone else who worked on the Dana Carvey show, who had dyed orange hair. And I guess they had some kind of crazy, you know, romance or something, where this person left quite a mark on him, because he ended up basing the character, you know, of Kate Winslet's character in that movie on this person, Tangerine or whatever, the orange hair, Kate Winslet character. And this real life person also worked at the Colbert Report, and I would work with her sometimes. She was like head of, she was like a production person. I can't recall, but she does have like bright dyed hair, and that was so interesting. One of the prop manager, he took me aside, and we were working together one day, and he told me that's who that was Charlie Kaufman's. I don't think they were married, but they were like, real serious. And he's like, you ever see Eternal Sunshine? That's who it's based on. I think she's still with that crew today, like working on, a late show or whatever it's called. I just got some notes here because I was jotting down things that I thought were cool. Well, yeah, I used to get like coffee for Stephen Colbert, and sometimes I'd get his lunch. Not like it was my personal job, but we would rotate it. There was always they were always rotating our responsibilities, and most times he would because being on TV and being a guy in his late 40s at that time, he's in his 50s now, but I mean, he would have to watch what he ate, and he would be in the gym every morning. Sometimes we get to sit in production meetings in the morning, or like the sort of daily briefing thing that would happen at like 8 in the morning every day. Steven would always be in his gym shorts, like he had just come from the gym. I mean, those guys fucking, Steve, I can only speak to Steven because that's what I saw, but he fucking, he's a strict, disciplined dude, man. Like those guys, the commitment is off the charts. And Steven was actually in a Broadway play by Stephen Sondheim at the same time. So like this dude was fucking fully committed. Like, you're talking about in the gym at 6, 7 every day, probably 6. And then by the time he was, he lives in Montclair, New Jersey, at least he did. So by the time he would get into the city, the 8 a.m. meeting, he's in his gym shorts, working till fucking 6, 7 every night, And then after that, he would go and rehearse for this Broadway play that he was in, which was at least a couple of months of my time when I was there. So he would be real strict with his diet. I remember I would get him falafel a lot of times. I'd get him coffee from this place, across the street. It was in Hell's Kitchen, like 50, I can't remember. I want to say it was on 59th Street, but I could be wrong. It could be 55th or 54th maybe. It was in the 50s. And I always remember just being like, man, they're trusting like an intern to like get this man's food and coffee. Like, obviously I would never do anything foul, but like, what if I was a crazy person that wanted to like fuck with his food? I don't know. Like, I just was always like, wow, they really have a trust of their interns. So normally he would be like on his own diet and, be strict with it. He ate a lot of sushi, I remember. But we would get these amazing catered lunches every day for the whole crew. I can't imagine what type of money they were spending just on food. It's like overwhelming, like craft services every day. And he would generally not eat it. Like, he would be on his own dietary situation. And we get some really nice food in there. And one day we got like some steaks or some like crazy meat or whatever. And I guess he couldn't help himself because I was like probably setting up the food like in one of the areas, whatever I was helping on. And I just heard him go, meat. And like, I like turned around and it was Steven. I'm just like, oh, you never eat the catering. And he's like, meat today. He's just a funny dude. He was always like what you see. Well, now he's like, this more serious late show host, like talk show host. But, his character, obviously not the hyper Republican character that he would play on the Colbert Report, but just as far as being like quick and funny, that's him 100%. Like, he is the fastest, quickest, like, person I've ever seen, you know? I mean, like, so funny. So yeah, I think I touched on everything. I just thought it'd be fun to kind of, I've never talked about that before. I'll end with this because this was probably my big shining moment when I interned there. But one day, I can't remember, I was upstairs, I was helping with something, and all of a sudden somebody goes, "Oh, he would be good." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they take me into this room and they go, "We're doing this skit. Steven is selling this art picture." They were doing this long running thing of like Steven was like pretending to be a high class artist, and he was having like Shepard Fairey on and different like, you know, real famous artists, and he was trying to like be like, "Oh, I'm also an artist" or something. I can't even recall really the sketch. I'll try to link it if I can find it below. But one of the jokes was like one of the pictures he was going to try to put up in a museum was something that he had copied he made copies of at Kinko's. So like part of the joke was like they wanted like a Kinko's employee that looked like he hated his life and he didn't want to be there or something. And I guess they like saw me. I have like, you know, they talk about like resting bitch face. Like I have resting like that face, whatever that is. So I just look like, I don't know, I'm not excited or something. So they were just like, "Oh, he would be good." And they took a picture of me. They were like, "Look like you hate your life and you hate your job." And they like gave me some pointers, and I was like I did one of those or whatever. And they're like, "All right, cool. We're going to use that for a sketch." And I'm like, "That's crazy." And a lot of times they would throw a bunch of ideas at the wall, and they would try it in rehearsal. They do a full-on rehearsal every show. And then by the time they get to taping, they end up cutting a lot of shit out. So they did it, and it made rehearsal. And I was like, "Man, that's awesome. Like, it would be so funny if they actually kept that for the show." And they did. So they ended up, and you wouldn't know what was from rehearsal and making the show because, you're not in those writers' rooms. And we would watch the show as it would actually tape. Like some of us would be down on the floor watching, and others would be like in the conference room, like depending on what your duties were for the day. And I remember watching the show, and the part came up, and my picture went up, and it made TV. And I feel like it was the night that or it was around the time that like Bin Laden was killed. I don't know why I remember that. I can't remember if it was that night or it was like around that time. And I remember like a few of my friends when it hit the air like texting me like, "Yo, I know I smoke a crazy amount of weed, but was that you?" And that was pretty fun. I'm gonna find that picture and make it the thumbnail of this video, I think. So yeah, I played like they green screened me and they put me in a Kinko's shirt and my face went on TV. So there's this great shot of Steven talking and like my face is right here, like on a screen. So yeah, that was my experience at the Colbert Report. One last thing real quick, which was really nice. I appreciated. At the end, we all got to take a big group photo, and he gave like almost like an exit interview, like where you could ask him questions and stuff. And I actually asked him like how he kept his composure and like how he kept his spirits up in his career as he was progressing, because he was married and he had kids before he was successful, and he had talked about some of his struggles, like as far as like any other artist or anybody trying to make it or whatever. And he got really honest about it, and he's like, "I always just felt like something was gonna work out if I kept working for it," and it was just inspiring, and like it was cool to kind of see him talk about like that side of it, because a lot of times we see these people and we just think oh yeah, they're on TV, or oh yeah, they're famous, or oh yeah, they're like no, everybody is like, everybody has their come up and their story, and when you could kind of see the other side of that, it inspires you, because you go, all right, like, he's here now, he wasn't, and he he basically believed in himself. So I just thought that was nice, of him to kind of share that. So yeah, that's my story. Maybe one day Gamblers will play the Late Show, and we could talk about that. I've always kind of thought that would be cool, and I don't think that's really getting ahead of ourselves. I think that's within the grasp. Maybe the next album cycle, maybe the one after that. I don't know, but I would like that to happen. I think that'd be cool. All right, that's story time tonight. Hope you all have a good night. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.